Saint Martin de Porres. Compassion, my dear brother, is preferable to cleanliness. Saint Martin de Porres, born in Lima, Peru, is celebrated by the Catholic Church on November 3rd as the patron saint of mixed-race people, barbers, innkeepers, public health workers, and all those seeking racial harmony. Martin de Porres Velázquez was the illegitimate son to a Spanish gentleman and a freed slave from Panama, of Africa, or possibly Native American descent. Inheriting his mother's dark color, he was looked upon and abandoned by his aristocratic father. From a young age, Martin grew up in deep poverty and he experienced a great deal of ridicule for being of mixed race. At the age of 12, Martin chose the trade of barber, which then included the duties of minor surgeon, doctor, and pharmacist. He was very prayerful and compassionate to others. At that time, all descendants of African or Indians were not allowed to become full members of religious orders in Peru. Martin found his only way into the community he longed for was to ask the Dominicans of Holy Rosary Priory to accept him to do the most menial tasks in the monastery. At the age of 15, he was received as a servant boy in the Dominican convent of the Rosary in Lima, and moved up to the church officer in charge of distributing money to the poor. Everything, even sweeping, scraping vegetables, weeding a garden and waiting on the sick, could be a prayer, if it were offered to God. In the monastery, Martin became great friends with both Saint Juan Macias, a fellow Dominican lay brother, and Saint Rose of Lima, a lay Dominican. Saint Martin's act of charity made him a patron saint of social justice. He fed, sheltered, and doctored hundreds of families. He established the orphanage and school of the Holy Cross, and taught the orphans trades or homemaking skills. He once saved an aged beggar, covered with ulcers and almost naked, paying no heed to the fact that he was not perfectly neat and clean. One of his brethren reproved him, saying that he has gone too far in his charity. But Saint Martin replied, "Compassion, my dear brother, is preferable to cleanliness. Reflect that with a little soap I can easily clean my bed covers, but even with a torrent of tears I would never wash from my soul the stain that my harshness toward the unfortunate would create." His love for all God's creatures inspired him to feed and heal all animals that came into his vicinity, and they understood and obeyed him. Saint Martin is often portrayed with animals, especially mice, because, according to one story, Martin spoke to the mice that have caused rodent problems in the monastery. He made a deal with them that if they would leave the monastery, he would feed them at the back door of the kitchen. And from that day forward, no mouse was seen in the monastery. When Martin was 60 years old, he became very ill with chills, fevers, and tremors, causing him agonizing pain. He would experience almost a year full of illness until he passed away on November 3, 1639. After his death, the miracles received when he was invoked multiplied in such greatness that when he was exhumed 25 years later, his body exuded a splendid fragrance and was still intact. Saint Martin de Porres was beatified by Pope Gregory XVI on October 29, 1837, and canonized by Pope John XXIII on May 6, 1962. What real merit have you? Remember that you ought to be nothing but a slave. Only through the mercy of God are you tolerated by others. Do not complain. That shows discontent with the will of God in the present moment. That is also proof of impatience.